If we go back to 2021, my friends, OneTigris brought out the Cosmitto tent. This looked to be a very promising two-person tent that was made from good quality materials that was also inexpensive. Unfortunately, the tent featured a design flaw. When the vents were closed, the tent would leak. When the vents were open, the tent would leak. In other words, the tent would leak from the vents no matter what. Because of that problem, I issued a warning to my viewers about that tent system. Do not purchase that tent. At the same time, I recommended to OneTigris that they pull the product from the market. Unfortunately, the company did not do that, but what they did do is this. They put a warning, an alert on every single product listing in regards to that tent, saying do not use the tent in rain because the tent was not designed for it. While I personally did not agree with that decision, that is better than nothing. Fast forwarding to 2023, OneTigris brought out the Cosmitto 2.0. And friends, that is what I am reviewing in this episode. I've been testing out this tent for a very long time, and it's now time to pass on my thoughts, my impressions, my review of this tent. I will give you all a quick summary in regards to my thoughts concerning this tent. For the money, this tent is astounding. Everyone, my name is Luke. This is the Outdoor Gear Review. Let's go ahead and get started right now. To get started, I'm going to go ahead and set up this tent, and while doing so, I will go over the stats real quick. The primary focus of this episode is my review. I've done a preview, I've done a test night, which is a waterproof test. I've gone over so much information about this tent that I do not need to go over again in this episode. Again, the primary focus of this episode is the review, namely the pros and cons, and my thoughts concerning this tent. To go over some stats, what we're setting up here is a two-person tent that features two doors. We have two vestibules, and the tent also has two vents. This is a partially freestanding tent where the doors do have to be staked out. Also, for the best ventilation, you would want to stake out the sides. When it comes to the materials, we're looking at a 20 denier Ripstop polyester for the fly. The floor for the tent is a 70 denier nylon. The mesh is a 40 denier nylon. The tent features YKK Zippers and 7001 aluminum poles. We also have aluminum tent stakes. The hydrostatic head rating is 2,000 millimeters, and that's for the fly and the floor. When the tent is stored, it is 20.5 inches by 6.7 inches. When the tent is set up, it is 6.9 feet long. It is 4.2 feet wide, and it has a peak height of 3.6 feet. As far as the weight goes, this is not a lightweight tent. You're looking at 5.1 pounds. It is available in two colors, a coyote brown and this wolf gray, which I absolutely love. As far as the price goes for this tent, $170 retail. Currently on Amazon, at the time of filming, it's $160. Focusing primarily on the body, you can see that it's covered in a ton of mesh, but there are some fabric panels. You have two panels on each door, and the sides are covered in fabric. This has been done to keep the price of this tent lower. Unfortunately, these fabric panels do inhibit some airflow, but overall the airflow inside of this tent is very good. We still have a ton of mesh, and I'll talk more about this in just a minute. The tent does feature a bathtub floor that sticks up roughly 6 inches. We have an upside down T-door design where each panel has its own zipper. There's 3 zippers in total. With each of these panels, they can be rolled back and tied off. On the inside of the tent, we have 2 large mesh pockets, and all of the seams are taped. With the fly itself, it connects to the body via buckles. There's a buckle in each corner. The sides can be staked out for excellent ventilation, and the doors themselves are fully adjustable as far as the stakeout points go. We do have a storm flap that goes over the zipper, and at the top of that storm flap, that's where we have the vents. We have 1 vent on each side, and unfortunately, they're not very good. With the fly itself, each door half can be rolled back and cinched up, giving you access to the tent itself. Now, speaking of which, when it comes to the doors for this tent, they are huge. It is easy to get into and out of this tent. In a nutshell, that is the OneTigris Cosmitto 2.0. Now let's begin with my pros and cons, starting with the pros. So right off the bat, the quality of this tent is top notch. There's no issues when it comes to the seam work, to the stitching, to the thread work. The seam tape looks excellent. Again, there's no issues here. Everything about this tent screams quality, which is impressive considering the low price. As far as the materials go, they are very good. They're not the highest end of materials, but that's okay. We have nylon for the floor, the body, the mesh, all of that's great, and we do have a polyester for the fly itself. The good thing about polyester is that it doesn't stretch as bad as nylon. So this is a pro. It does add to the weight, but you're not going to have to deal with stretching, and that's nice. As far as this tent being waterproof, it is impressively so. I've never had any sort of leaking with this tent, and I've taken it out in dozens of trips. We're talking about heavy deluge thunderstorms, rain that lasts all night long, rain with wind, and again, I've had no issues with this tent. As far as the ventilation goes and the condensation control with this shelter here, it is very good. Condensation is possible inside of any tent, and this tent is no different. But luckily, it is very well controlled because of the smart design. We have a lot of mesh here, and at the same time, the sides of the tent can be pulled out. This promotes ventilation, airflow, and when you have ventilation and airflow, condensation is lessened. Going back to the smart design of this tent, the fly pulls away from the body itself, so even if there is condensation on the fly itself, it doesn't come into contact with the inner body with the mesh, so you're in good shape. Additionally, the tent does have 2 vents that are built into the doors themselves. These do not work very well, and I will talk more about this in just a minute. It does add just a little bit to the ventilation, but not enough to make much of a difference. I mean, some is better than none, but the overall design of these vents could be better. As far as setting up the tent goes, this is a very simple process. It takes no time at all. You can easily set this up under 10 minutes. Once the tent is set up, it is extremely stable. Let's say that you stake out each of the corners. From that point on, I personally haven't had to stake this tent out any further than that. I have not put the guy lines on because there's simply been no need. This tent is extremely stable in the wind. Very, very solid. And I've had this tent out in some fairly strong windy conditions. Once you're inside of the tent, there is a ton of space. This is a true 2-person tent. There's enough space for 1 person and their gear, 1 person, their gear, and a dog. There's enough space for 2 people and some gear. If 2 people are going to be inside of this tent, of course you have the vestibules, and the vestibules do add a good amount of space to this tent, so you can store your backpacks there, your shoes, and whatnot. That is another pro for this tent. The vestibule space is usable. Something else that I want to point out here with this tent are the walls. They are fairly straight up and down, and this gives you a lot of space inside of the tent. 2 people can sit in chairs inside of this tent and be fully comfortable. That is how tall, how long, how wide this tent is. OneTigris has done a really good job as far as the overall design and the shape of this shelter. As far as the zippers go, with the fly and the body itself, they are extremely smooth, very good quality. Next, folks, you have to love a tent that has 2 doors. Not only is it easy for people to get in and out of this, 2 people, but it offers a lot of ventilation, so you can open up both doors and you get an excellent cross breeze. When it comes to the storage bag, it is large enough to fit this tent in it. I wish it was just a little bit bigger though. That's just a personal preference. It is plenty big enough to cram the tent in there after a trip, but it would be easier if the bag itself was larger. I'm not going to put this under the cons section because it's not so small that it's a big struggle. It could just simply be a little easier. Next, we have to talk about the appearance of this tent. I absolutely love the look of it. We have the black inner with the gray wolf outer. I love this color combination. It looks super sick. Also, the Coyote brown color, it's not bad either. Next, we have to talk about value, because for a 3-season tent that does just about everything right, the value for this tent is insane. It does, again, everything right. It's large, it's spacious, ventilation's very good, super waterproof, condensation's very well maintained in this shelter. Again, it just does everything right for the money. And because of all of that, this is a tent that is very hard to beat. Now we are at the point where we need to go over the cons that I have for this tent. The first con here is weight. At 5.1 pounds for a 2-person tent, this is quite heavy. The thing you have to keep in mind is this: it doesn't break the bank, and at the same time, it's large. The walls are steep, the roof is tall, so there's a lot of space in this tent here. And because of that, and because of the price, this tent is a little bit heavy. Next, a minor issue that I have with all OneTigris tents is that the company does not label them. So as soon as you purchase a tent, you should write on it what it is, or put some sort of tag on there, because OneTigris does not label what their products are. So if you have more than one OneTigris product, more than one tent, you can easily become confused, and it becomes a huge headache. OneTigris, begin labeling your products. It's going to save everyone a ton of time and cost you very little. Please do it. Now let's focus on the vents that are integrated into the doors. As you can see here, they simply do not offer much in the way of ventilation. The little pole that holds them up and separates the 2 panels, it just doesn't work that well. It doesn't allow for that much airflow to go inside of the tent. It could be much, much better. Also, during windy conditions, you have to close those up because rain and water can make its way inside. What good are vents that have to be closed when it's raining? The answer is not very good. Next, Next, everyone, I want you to focus on the stakeout points on the sides of the tent. I love the fact that you can stake these out, but unfortunately, those stakeout points are non-adjustable. Because it's non-adjustable, getting the perfect pitch on uneven terrain can be difficult. To solve this issue, the company needs to make those fully adjustable, just like they've done with the doors. An additional issue that I have with this tent are the way that the doors roll back, the locations of the hardware, and the hardware themselves. The rollback and tie-off point is a little bit low, and it doesn't do a good job of securing the door when it's rolled back. In a strong breeze, the entire door can unfold. Also, the hardware itself is not very good. If you push down on it too much, you can easily pull it all the way off of the strand that holds it into place. There is a knot present to stop that from happening, but the knot itself is too small. So you may want to retie this over and over to make it larger, that way it doesn't happen. Lastly, we have to talk about the corded pulls on the tent stakes. These are terrible, they just keep coming undone. OneTigris stated to me that they were going to fix this issue, but I do not know if they have done so. With the most recent tents that I've tested out from the company, they continue to have this issue. The cords that are used for those pulls simply do not hold a knot very well. Now you can glue them yourself and solve the issue or replace them. Whatever you want to do. Speaking of that, if you want to make the sides of the tent more adjustable, add a little bit of shock cord. You can just tie a piece on, and from that point on, you're not going to have any sort of issues as far as this setup goes. Those are the pros and cons that I have for the Cosmitto 2.0. All in all, this is a fantastic shelter that really is hard to beat. It looks good, everything's functional, there's no big glaring issues. OneTigris has certainly done right by the outdoor community by improving this tent. It is unfortunate that they did not remove the first version because it had such big issues, such important issues. The simple fact is, it was not waterproof. It was defective from the get-go. They should have just pulled that product from the market, licked their wounds, and moved on. But unfortunately, they continued to offer that product. Luckily, they did put the disclaimer on there that the tent was not waterproof. Hopefully, everybody saw it. My problem with this in general is very simple. There's no point to offer a tent that is not waterproof. When a customer goes out to purchase a tent for backpacking, for camping, they expect the tent to be waterproof. There's no sense in purchasing a tent that is not waterproof. Anyways, folks, the company certainly has made right with this tent. It is an excellent tent. I can easily recommend it for $170. What tent has these features? What tent is of this size? What tent is as waterproof as this? I really do love this tent, and I have no issues with recommending it. If you have any questions about this tent, make sure to check out my preview where I go over every single point, every stat, every feature. Again, this was basically a review, hitting upon the pros and the cons, and I summarized my thoughts. In the end, this is fantastic. I can easily recommend it. Also, make sure to check out the numerous adventures that I filmed with this tent. And also check out the test night episode where I waterproof tested this tent. With all of that being said, make sure to comment down below, share your thoughts. What do you all think about the Cosmitto 2.0? Everyone, take care, be well, strength and honor. Hit the like button before you go. I do appreciate it. Oh yeah. See ya, folks. Bye for now.